All right. Look, our next guest, an interesting fellow. He served in the US Navy. He's an honorary captain in the Royal New Zealand Navy, practiced journalism in Asia, still contributes media commentary, studied political science in California and got a doctorate. He's taught at universities in St. Louis, Hong Kong and Kobe, and he came to New Zealand in 1972. And he is a associate professor at Auckland University. And I think, and look, this is no slight on our good friend Robert Patman, but when it comes to matters of defence, I think Stephen Hoadley is very well positioned to make commentary on what's happening in New Zealand now. And he joins us now. Stephen, nice to talk to you again. Welcome to the platform.
Good morning.
Look, I think the last few weeks in terms of foreign affairs and a really clear indication from a government that it's going to change the way we have been doing things. I've never quite seen anything like it quite so quickly from a new government. Would you agree, Stephen? There is a new course being charted in foreign affairs by this and defence by this government.
I would say yes and no in the sense that New Zealand is moving closer to the United States, closer to Australia. It's more robust statements regarding a contribution to the rules-based order. But on the other hand, the move is incremental and small. It's not a step change, in my view. I might refer your listeners to the joint statement that the ministers have just issued. It's on the website. Just put in joint statement, Australia and New Zealand security statement. And it's essentially a rundown of all the things that New Zealand and Australia agree on. And I've read through it, and it looks very familiar. It looks pretty much like the previous government and the mainstream. So, yeah, well, I take the point that there is a shift, if you will, towards a greater vigilance, greater wariness towards China, greater willingness to work with traditional partners, but it's not a major shift.
Okay, so you're saying at the moment it's all talk, no trousers, Stephen?
Oh, no, it's trousers as well. It's not just talk. It's a continuation of what's already happened. Now, in this statement, I found a very interesting reference to the ANZUS Treaty. Now, the ANZUS Treaty was one that David Lange, in a sense, obliged the United States to exclude New Zealand from.
We parted, but we parted company, but we parted as friends. Yeah.
Excellent quotation. Well done.
And I met Schultz when he was out here to say that.
Yes, well, very good. And it was a turning point, but but now the United States has accepted New Zealand's non-nuclear policy, and New Zealand is citing the ANZUS Treaty again, which links us with Australia. So that's an interesting...
okay. At the moment, we are not full members of what is called AUKUS, Australia, UK, US arrangement. There was talks of, what is it, a fifth, is it called the fifth pillar?
Second pillar.
The second pillar, which would be a ersatz membership with not quite full access. You don't get to the really exclusive room at the back of the nightclub, but you do get to the front of the queue.
You don't get on board the submarine, but you can get some of the defense technology and the AI stuff that accompanies it. It's like NATO. New Zealand is not a member of NATO, but it's an associate, and it sits in on the meetings, and it's much of the information is shared. So it's New Zealand has the kind of associate status with also things like the Quad. So this is for some a comfortable position. It gives New Zealand freedom and flexibility to say no or yes, depending on the circumstances. So I think New Zealand is maintaining its political independence by this method of associating itself with various institutions, but not actually committing to full membership.
All right. The perception is, though, that Nanaia Mahuta was not, if you like, pro-Western. She didn't trust foreign affairs itself. And I think on social media and commentary is basically trying to paint Judith Collins as some, fifth columnist for the CIA.
Yes.
And look, we've committed, obviously, 6 personnel to help in an, administrative or operative, but non-frontline combat role in the battle against the Houthis, the war against the Houthis. I say again, Stephen, it does look like we're shifting our position, like we're going back and realigning with our more traditional allies or friends.
Yeah, this is true, but it wasn't very long ago when New Zealand sent dozens of combat soldiers to Iraq with Australia and more or less working under the United States guidance.
Yeah.
It wasn't long ago that New Zealand sent a frigate to the Persian Gulf, and a New Zealand officer actually commanded units, naval units in the Persian Gulf. And again, the United States was the leading figure in the Combined Task Force 152. And there's lots of examples of New Zealand in the last couple of decades under Helen Clark's Labour government, as well as John Key's national government, of assistance in Afghanistan, for example. So in sending 6 people in intelligence operatives, as far as we are know, much of this is still confidential, is not a major step. It does divide New Zealand, but I think you're right on one thing. There is a lot of controversy, and the academic and the public communities are dividing a little bit. One side fearful that this is going to drag New Zealand into a wider conflict in the Middle East, and the other, the one that I share, is that this is incremental, it's careful, it's done by serious people making serious decisions in Wellington, in the New Zealand national interest, that working with like-minded friends to maintain some sort of order in the world is a good thing.
All right, so you're giving it kind of a limited thumbs up. Can I ask a question, Steve? In reality, do the big kids, and I kind of include Australia in that, do the big players really care whether New Zealand's on board or not? And what do we get out of it? What do we get out of being members of the club?
That's a question people have been asking as long as I've been here, for nearly 50 years. And my answer is they care because New Zealand is taken seriously. As a small player, yes. As a heavy lifter, no. But as a flag, as a sovereign state, as a state with a good reputation, then New Zealand is always welcome at the table or in a coalition. In the East Timor coalition, for example, New Zealand worked right under Australia as number 2. Also in Solomon Islands, worked with Australia as number 2, a welcome addition. So I'm pretty confident that whatever New Zealand decides to do, it'll be welcome.
And Steve, I guess too, with the Southwest Pacific, our part of the world becoming more important in a geological sense because it is, an area of geopolitical conflict or jockeying for position, we become perhaps a little more relevant than we have been hitherto?
Well, the United States has come our way. Remember, back in the Obama presidency, they said